Hey everyone, welcome to the Slice of Healthcare Dental Podcast. I'm your host, Jared Taylor. Joining me today, we have the managing partner of Revere Partners, Dr. Jeremy Krell. How's it going?
Hey Jared, great to be here and meet everybody and talk to everybody. Doing well, busy here building dental tech innovation and investment and the ecosystem around it, and happy to be here.
Excited to have you here. We're going to start out with my question I ask everyone when they first come on. If you're wearing a quarter zip and they saw Revere Partners on it, what do you tell someone when they're like, what does your company do?
Yeah, sure. Kind of our elevator pitch. Happy to share. Revere is really trying to advance science and technology in the dental industry to provide better health outcomes for patients and their providers.
I love it. And talk us through some of the companies that you've invested in to date.
Yeah, sure. So to date, our first fund invested in 42 different dental technology companies. They are mostly Series A, but in total span seed to Series B. They fall within the kind of categories of technology being software, financial technology, biotech like devices and therapeutics, and then into some specialty products and imaging and so on. We of those, there are many in there that are exciting. A couple of examples in the financial technology category is AirPay. They're focused on insurance eligibility and verification and streamlining that process, getting better data and quicker for the practice, saving them time. And keeping the patient in the office and transparent on the fees. Also, another one would be Uptime Health, and they're focused on the sort of keeping the office away from downtime due to equipment failure. So they're really doing equipment management and equipment intelligence, measuring the health of the dental equipment and really getting ahead of if something should be fixed or replaced, providing those servicers and a suite of other services in the practice to keep away from downtime, keep uptime, preserve uptime. So those are just a couple of the many that we've invested in that are exciting to us.
I'll just say I'm a huge fan of Uptime Health. I've known Janesh for a while, and was very excited about that recent acquisition that they put together. It was a Dental Whale.
That's right. Yeah, they've had a couple. They had Front Office Rocks as well as Dental Whale. So really kind of expanding their stake in the ground.
Love it. What particular areas are you maybe most bullish on in this space? For this can be companies you've already invested in, but let's even look at areas that are on your radar now within the oral health space that, maybe you haven't made that first investment in yet, but you're like either close or you will in the next 6 to 12 plus months.
Yeah, sure. Happy to share some, but it's a complex and nuanced question as there's actually a lot of sub verticals across dental technology. At Revere, we really look at, the market segments that are the most robust. Right? Not just the most robust right now, but we think that they're going to continue to grow at a very high, and not just very high, but increasing rate year over year for the next 3, 5, 10 years at least. Right? Reason that we do that is because if we expect out of an investment that we make that it grow, right, very much quarter over quarter, year over year, right, logarithmically as we hope a venture capital investment will grow. It has to grow within the confines, right, of the market or sub-market that it exists in, right? Unless it is, there's one element of capturing more market share. There's another element of growing the market for themselves. And some are able to, reach that second level. It just, really kind of depends on their company and their product or service. So we really look very carefully at kind of the robustness of the market. And I think the close relative to that, the other side of that same coin, is also kind of the nature of the problem, right? To the holder of the problem, right? To the practice or to the patient. Is this a real pain point? Is it something that is, causing some kind of downstream issue or even upstream issue within the patient care journey? Is the damage, or missed opportunity, is the magnitude of that large? Is the pain point large? So we look at its, sort of the perception of that problem, to those it affects in the value chain also pretty carefully. So some of these, segments are, for example, workforce management. It's not really specific to dental. This problem is felt across healthcare as well as other industries, but in particular, even hygienists within dental. Right, it's the sourcing and the recruitment of them. It's the managing of them. It's the retaining of them long term. Right, a lot of nuance to workforce management. Certainly can't provide care to a patient if you're missing the critical people that need to be there. Another one of the kind of robust market segments is, I would call it, and I know this is a big, broad stroke, but all things RCM, or revenue cycle management in dental. I mean that from kind of the insurance eligibility verification process all the way through to the claims processing and adjudication and posting process, how appeals are being handled, how accounts payable are being handled and tracked and reconciled, even maybe credentialing, right? This area of revenue cycle management and the many strings attached are another, major problem, especially for the growth of group organizations, these dental support organizations, or DSOs. But any practice can relate to those problems, assuming they're taking insurance. So I'd say those are two examples of pretty robust market segments where the pain point felt is high.
Now, as of, I think it was last year, you have big conferences like Health that are actually starting to have pavilions for oral health. And I know CareQuest, who we've had on in the past, they were a participant in that. And I believe they're going to have a big presence this year as well at the upcoming conference. One of the things I talked about with CareQuest when they came on is that oral health impacts overall health so much. So what this has been the case for a long time, but why is it that it seems like we're just starting to talk about it now?
Yeah, no, I think it's definitely a question that we at Revere, are constantly looking at, and CareQuest have a really great perspective on this, given the mission and values behind their company, not just their company, but we've partnered closely on the Smile Health Incubator that they've created, and are starting to get involved in health as well. Health the conference. I think somewhere historically down the line, and there's a lot of history behind it, we kind of lost sight that the mouth is in the body, right? We started delegating this as sort of a separate specialty, splitting off the academic process and its accreditation, the training that goes along with, and then everything that kind of comes after that degree is conferred, right? Kind of exists in a silo for the most part, separate from the rest of the health industry. And I think, we're again starting to see markers in the data, all kinds of different data, but in particular clinical data, that point to the fact that, hey, there's a lot of signs and symptoms that happen in the mouth. There could be early detection there. Even if not early detection, there could be signs and symptoms of existing processes that are known, right? And a variety of elements that indicate we should be treating the mouth as a part of the body, right? And looking at it as a component of some of the other major systems that exist in the body. I think some of the challenges, that come from that separation that has historically occurred, is that a lot of the core kind of operating systems are different now, right? They've kind of gone down their own pathway of differentiation. So the practice management systems are largely not compatible with what the healthcare system uses in terms of, its patient management systems and its, as well its ability to, database or track data on patients. So that's an issue, right, from a software and data perspective, right? We've kind of lost touch in terms of the financial aspect, right? How do you, and the work, sort of a workflow question as well. What element of, health measure should be taken in a dental office? What element of dental measure should be taken in a healthcare office? right? Training those people, but also the operational workflows that go into making, those a priority, within the actual patient care process, is not quite there. So we have lost some of the underlying, connection points that we need to reestablish. I think another issue there is, now the business model in a dental practice, right? At the end of the day, there's a lot of overhead expense, to any kind of medical practice. If you're going to take time to do, other types of services, how are they going to be billed, or reimbursed? The insurance systems are completely different, as well, with the biggest dental insurer not having health insurance product, with the health insurers that do carry, have dental policies, not really intermingling them, at least not externally, right, to the provider or the patient. So we have a lot of there's a lot of gap there that require, the re-bridging, right, and kind of repositioning of the two closer together so that we as providers can be effective and really provide service for the patients.
I, too often when we try to innovate in any space, right, but also in particular with this space, it seems like there's incremental, like just tiny changes that are made versus someone coming along and putting together a whole new plan. And I know it's so difficult to go out and truly just transform a space overnight, but now with the emergence, like you talk about some of this back office stuff, right? Like the back office stuff is all things that AI will have a huge impact on. Let's talk a little bit. It's not a podcast these days if you don't mention AI once.
Sure.
So let's talk about what you've been seeing in terms of AI's potential for impacting this space. I'm sure it's some back office stuff, but would love to hear your thoughts.
Yeah, no, I mean, first of all, in terms of its role in oral systemic health links, I think the real application there, and it's sort of yet to be fully seen or developed, but is helping those providers make sense of a lot of information all at once to provide that comprehensive care to the patient, right? A dentist has, the information it asks on its health forms, and, that the patient has reported to them, but it doesn't necessarily have access to the patient's entire health record, or, the history of their health, in the way that if you say logged into something like Epic, you could potentially access as a healthcare provider a vast amount of information, right? And it isn't, the answer is not just connecting the two, right? Hey, here, dentists, you now have access, if the patient gives you permission, to see their whole health records, so, through something like Epic. Because how is the dentist supposed to make sense of all of that information? There's an enormous amount of information, all kinds of encounters, all kinds of pharmaceutical data, right? All kinds of different conditions and medications. And there's a lot of information in there over the course of somebody's life and all their health encounters, right? So that's where something like AI, that frankly has many, many, many more CPUs, right, than the human brain does, can help to really parse out, hey, what is really relevant here, dentist? You're responsible for all this information, and you're now part of the total health team of this patient. Here is the information that is most relevant to you in the course of the treatment plan that you need to provide to take care of this patient's oral health needs, right? If the patient has a bleeding disorder and you're planning to do an invasive dental procedure, that is relevant information that we need to know, right? Whether or not the patient, voluntarily described or disclosed, that to you intentionally or not intentionally, we're not able to, right? But you have that information now at your fingertips, rather than, here's this, vast sea of knowledge that, you'd have to sift through to find anything even remotely, relevant. In terms of dentistry and AI, yeah, you're right. It's specific applications of AI, that have really kind of predominated. One of the first to the scene is, helping dentists to evaluate these dental radiographs. An awful lot of the procedures that we do in the practice rely on analyzing the radiographs, not for the big conditions that are, immediately obvious to the eye, but to the incipient conditions, the ones that are just getting started and are, really easy to miss unless you're using very precise tools. So an incipient lesion on a tooth, right, the beginning of a cavity that maybe we can remineralize, or the incipient widening of this periodontal ligament that say, hey, look, there might be some sort of infection or bone periodontal disease, forming here. What can we do about that? Right? It's these types of things which are particularly helpful because the data will also show that dentists don't agree with themselves, their own opinion within the same day, more often than not, and certainly don't agree with each other. In terms of courses of treatment, non-maliciously, right? There's many different alternatives to treat a patient. So this is one application of dental, and I think it is getting more specific in terms of helping to educate the patient or convert a treatment plan or move the insurers closer to something like pre-authorization or so on. But there's been several others in patient management systems that are, say, tracking orthodontic or tooth movement. They're helping to tell patients, like in the case of Grin, hey, it's time to switch your aligner tray. Your teeth are ready for that next, aligner to be put on, and giving them that confidence and knowledge to do that, or rerouting them back to the provider in the case where, they're not ready. Or something like call, intelligence. If you're talking like a company like Pure Logic, is able to listen to millions upon millions of minutes of the front office talking to the patient and understanding, how to help the office optimize their process based on what it is that they're hearing, and making sense out of that knowledge. And there's many, many, many more, applications, but the more specific they are, in our experience, the more likely they are to succeed.
What's next for Revere Partners? As we wrap up here, I'd love to hear, what are you most excited about moving forward?
Yeah. Well, I think definitely internal, updates, but also, in terms of in the market, we're seeing some really interesting imaging technology come out. The more visibility, not to use a pun on the word, but the more visibility we have into what's going on, in the patient's mouth, especially in real time, chair side, accessibly, the better. We're also, this one kind of bridges oral systemic health, but seeing kind of microbiome and salivary detection, come to the forefront. What are those markers in the mouth? Let's make some sense out of them to tell us what's going on at a microbiome level, and what we can do to disrupt that process if it is off the tracks, is a pretty exciting, space. And then internal to Revere, we're really excited that our Fund One has done very, very well. We've had 2 exits already. We have an IRR, internal rate of return, north of 20%, and I think 17 markup events of different companies increasing their valuation already within our portfolio. So it's been a very successful Fund One. And off of that track record and validation, for investing in dental technology, we're now launching Fund Two. So coming here in the fall and towards the end of the year, that Fund Two, which is now raising capital, will start to deploy in an even bigger capacity than the first fund, and moving on to services, that are hosted more directly by ourselves. And so we're really excited about Fund Two.
I love it. Uh, I want to thank you again so much for joining me here today and talking oral health with us. Thanks so much.
Thanks, Jared. Thanks for having me.